headlines, more than 200 energy experts from Korea and around the world gather in Seoul to discuss new investment opportunities in the renewable energy sector. Samsung Electronics unpacks new smart gadgets, including Galaxy Note 4 and Galaxy Note Edge, just a few days before its arch-rival Apple unveils its iPhone 6. And the NATO summit, considered to be the most important gathering of its leaders in more than a decade, kicks off with a host of pressing issues, from the crisis in Ukraine to ISIS militant threats in Iraq and Syria. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newscast. Live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery. President Park Geun-hye carried on with her deregulation drive on this Thursday as well, calling for an elimination of regulations that hinder individuals from participating in the generation and sales of energy. At an international forum on renewable energy in Seoul, President Park said having individuals and communities create energy markets of their own through use of IT devices could help save social expenses and foster new energy-related industries. The Korean government has been promoting new investment opportunities in the renewable energy sector in the process of tackling climate change. The president also stressed the need for the government to ease investors' concerns about the risk of innovation and establish a Korean energy export model to meet global demands. Samsung Electronics has unveiled 4 new handset models, including the Galaxy Note 4 in Berlin. Initial reactions seem to be positive, but Apple has an event of its own scheduled for next week. Our Park Ji-won has more.
Samsung Electronics has pulled the curtain back on 4 new models, including its new flagship, the Galaxy Note 4. It comes with a 5.7-inch Super AMOLED display and a 16-megapixel camera with an optical image stabilization function. And unlike its predecessor, the Galaxy Note 3, the new version features a sleek metal frame design.
The Galaxy Note 4 will continue to set industry standard for how smartphones should help our lives become more enriched, more enjoyable, and more efficient.
Another new phone, the Galaxy Note Edge, is also catching the attention of industry insiders, namely for having a display screen that extends to the right edge of the phone, which can be used to show a scrollable panel of information.
For me, the most curious thing is Galaxy Edge, because I heard some rumors, but it was years ago. It was the most, the best device for me.
Samsung also unveiled a virtual reality headset and its new Gear S smartwatch model in Berlin. The releases come 1 week before Apple is expected to show off its iPhone 6 to the world. The speculation is that it will have a larger screen, similar in size to Samsung phones, and maintain the 2 rivals' heated competition in the global market. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
But putting a slight damper on Samsung's parade was news that the company has been ordered to cough up more than 35 million euros, or roughly 46 million US dollars, in fines to the European Union for the alleged price fixing of microcard chips used in mobile phones. An investigation into 3 companies, Samsung Electronics, Philips, and Infineon, began back in 2008, and the European Commission says they colluded between the period of 2003 and 2005. Samsung's fine has been reduced by 30% for cooperating with the investigators, but Philips plans to appeal, saying it firmly believes the claims are unfounded. The latest data out this morning underlining the need for urgent steps to raise household income here in Korea. This as the Korean government plans on boosting consumer spending in order to break out of its low growth trap. Song Ji-sun has more.
Despite the need to boost domestic demand, Korean consumers are not earning enough to increase spending, as the corporate sector is sucking up an increasingly large share of the wealth generated by the country. Although it's a global trend that households face an uphill battle against corporations in terms of their proportion of a national income, the gap between the two sectors is widening much faster in Korea, according to data released on Thursday by the National Assembly's Budget Office. Households accounted for just over 62% of Korea's gross national income in 2012, down more than 8 percentage points from 1995. That pace of loss is twice as fast as the OECD average. On the other hand, Korea's corporate sector increased its share of GNI by nearly 7 percentage points over the same period, 4 times higher than the OECD average. The parliamentary office attributed the fast decrease in the Korean household share to poor performances by individually run businesses and dwindling interest income. Bank of Korea figures show that households' net interest earnings fell more than 75% to $4 billion over the last decade, when the corporate sector shed its interest burden by about 55%. To help increase the share of household income, the government is drawing up a package of measures that include revisions to the tax law, but some experts say encouraging investment should also be part of the plan.
To facilitate domestic spending, policies that encourage hiring or wage hikes should be promoted so that households actually gain disposable income.
The Park Geun-hye administration has emphasized that boosting domestic demand is at the heart of its policies to revitalize the economy. 송지선, Arirang News.
The Korean economy grew at its slowest pace in nearly 2 years in the second quarter of this year. The Bank of Korea confirmed on this Thursday that the economy expanded just 0.5% in the April to June period on quarter in real terms, a shade lower than a 0.6% growth estimated back in July. It compares with a 0.9% gain in the first quarter. The central bank points to lower than expected net exports as one of the major reasons for this sluggish growth. With this, experts say this year's overall growth outlook of 3.8% might have to be revised down. Korean automakers may have been more than happy to turn the calendar over to the month of September this week, actually, as both auto production as well as export figures dropped significantly in August due to labor strikes at Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors and a reduction in the number of working days. The Trade Ministry says total output fell by more than 20% on year. Exports dropped by nearly 19%, while domestic sales inched down 4%, that is. But auto imports, however, went the other direction, with sales growing over 17% on year, seeing a double-digit jump for the 11th straight month. Citing recent economic indicators, Korea's finance minister warned last week that the country had entered the early stages of deflation. But as our Hwang Ji-hye reports, many experts seem to disagree on this and saying the economy could be picking up and won't face a deflationary danger anytime soon.
Korea's inflation rate has remained below the 2% level for nearly 2 years. The latest consumer price index has also pointed to a slowdown from a recent pickup. The index rose at its slowest pace in 4 months, rising 1.4% in August from a year ago. That also falls far below the central bank's inflation target band of 2.5% to 3.5%. But many experts say the domestic economy running a low inflation rate does not mean it's headed for deflation.
When we say deflation, it means a minus inflation rate is continuing for such a prolonged period of time that people's expected inflation rate also turns to minus. So it's too early to talk about deflation.
They add that the focus should be on the nation's core inflation rate, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, and that index actually grew at the fastest pace in 2.5 years last month at 2.4%. Experts say Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan had political reasons for raising concerns about deflation.
There is a lot of fiscal policy that the government wants to engage in. For example, changes in the welfare policy, measures to try to invigorate some new industries. But that's all being held in status at the National Assembly. So I think this was his way to try to shock the National Assembly into moving on some of these issues.
Che's comments also pressured the Bank of Korea to further lower its key interest rate with this month's monetary policy meeting just around the corner. But as concerns linger over the nation's mounting household debt problem, experts say it's likely the central bank will hold off a rate cut this month. The bank lowered the key rate to 2.25% in August, the first rate cut since May last year. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on Arirang TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to. Seoul and Washington will establish a combined division of their troops next year with the task of carrying out wartime operations. South Korea's defense ministry says if formed, the unit would be a first of its kind around the world. It will be set up in the first half of next year and be headed by a major general-level U.S. officer. Details on the new unit's missions are not available, but officials say at wartime it will carry out special operations such as eliminating weapons of mass destruction and civil missions against North Korea. Cigarette prices have remained steady at around $2.50 since 2008 here in Korea, but that could change soon if the government has its way as it tries to lower Korea's high smoking rate. Shin Se-min tells us more.
Smokers in Korea will soon have to pay an extra $2 for a pack of cigarettes. This as the government and the ruling Saenuri Party have come to an agreement on raising cigarette prices in a bid to reduce the nation's current smoking rate. The change is nothing more than a proposal right now, but smokers are already looking ahead.
It is working as a motivating factor for me. I think I'll finally quit once the price goes up, both because of my health and the economic burden.
It's a burden. I don't think I'll be able to maintain the amount I smoke once the price goes up. It's just too much.
The 80% price hike on a pack of cigarettes would narrow the gap between Korea and the OECD average, which is $6.40. More than 37% of Korean males over the age of 15 currently smoke. That's the second highest rate among OECD member nations, behind only Greece. The low cost of cigarettes in Korea has been pinpointed as a major reason for the high smoking rate. Making them more expensive, experts say, will have an effect particularly on younger Koreans who are not economically independent. A quarter of high school students admit to having used tobacco at least once in their lives. Studies show that raising the price of cigarettes also has an effect on people who are economically independent. The consensus among global researchers is that a 10% increase in the price of cigarettes results in a 3 to 5% reduction in the smoking rate.
The government says it's still fine-tuning the details of the plan, but the price hike will almost certainly happen in stages, as a sudden increase will likely be met with backlash by smokers. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Talk to any foreigner who's lived in Korea for any extended period of time, and they will tell you that shopping online can be a complicated and frustrating ordeal. But relief is on the way as the Korean government is working toward changes to simplify that process. Yurian has the details.
In 2008, the personal information of about 10 million people is leaked from an online shopping mall. Another 20 million customers fall victim in 2009 and 2010 when a total of 25 online shopping malls are hacked into. And since Koreans are required to provide their social security numbers, birth dates, and other personal info to sign up for a membership, all of it is exposed. Foreigners don't have the same problem because they don't have Korean social security numbers, but that presents another issue for them, as they're unable to shop online without such a number. To combat data leaks and increase the accessibility to online shopping malls for foreigners, the government has decided to do away with a number of measures by the first half of next year. Providing social security numbers will no longer be a requirement for Koreans when making purchases online, and foreigners will be able to purchase goods by verifying their identity through credit cards.
We are going to devise new regulations for core growth areas like e-commerce. To do so, we are going to set up a panel of people from different fields of expertise.
By breaking down the barriers to online shopping for foreigners, the government expects exports in the sector to increase to $300 billion by 2017, up from about 24 million last year. Yurian, Arirang News.
The Korean DMZ is a popular spot for tourists who want a glimpse across the border at North Korea. It's an area fraught with an emotional history, but as our Imuni reports, where there are emotions, there is the potential for art.
An area of Korea littered with remnants of the Korean War. On the fringe of the 38th parallel north, you wouldn't expect to find much at the Korean demilitarized zone, except for maybe skeletons of the destruction that divided a nation. So what would a collection of art be doing in an area like this? Argentinian artist Adrian Villarrojas shows that the Korean DMZ is in fact a fitting place for artistic inspiration, and he responds with a collection of art.
I absolutely fell in love with the place, and I had this sort of ambitious idea of use the town as a theater, as a huge studio.
And he's not the only artist to do so. Cellist Lee Kyung fills the air with her music, an unexpected venue for the beautiful notes of the classical instrument. And artist Tomas Araceno's works includes a beautiful scene of the mountains of Korea, even including peaks from North Korea. Titled Degrees of Freedom, the binocular telescope captures a 360-degree view and the sentiments of many. These are just a few of the artists who are part of this year's Real DMZ project, a contemporary art project based on research conducted on the DMZ that brings a unique perspective of artists from all over the world.
And this is fascinating for me to try an exhibition that explores the field between politics and the art.
It's a project that experiments with unique productions and exhibitions and aims to bring awareness to the real DMZ. Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
NATO leaders have gathered in Wales for what's being referred to as the most important gathering in more than a decade. There are a handful of crucial topics, of course, to deal with, including the Ukraine crisis and the growing threat of the Islamic State militants. And for this story and many other more, we have Son Jang-in joining us from the News Center. So, Jang-in, what are the NATO leaders looking to achieve through the summit?
Well, NATO's top objective is to reassure allies in Eastern Europe to stand ready to defend against any possible aggression. All eyes are also on how talks between Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and the leaders of the US and the EU will turn out, a day after Kiev and Moscow went back and forth on the terms of a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. Our Lee Ji-yeon has more.
Following a phone call with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko on Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin unveiled a 7-point ceasefire plan to end the bloody conflict in eastern Ukraine. Stating his views on the conflict were very similar to those of Poroshenko, Putin said the plan included a halt to separatist fire, a pullback of Ukrainian forces, an end to airstrikes, and the establishment of a humanitarian aid passage. Poroshenko, for his part, said he and Putin shared a mutual understanding on steps to ensure peace in the region, adding that he expected a substantive dialogue on reconciliation to take place during talks in Minsk on Friday. However, Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk dismissed the ceasefire plan, saying it was an attempt to deceive the West about Moscow's real intentions. With growing skepticism, France has also expressed its disapproval by delaying the delivery of 2 naval assault ships to Russia. The UN says more than 1 million people have been uprooted from their homes and many more may follow, as it doesn't look like the dark clouds of war will lift anytime soon. Lee Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
And Jung-in, after the brutal killings of 2 American journalists by Islamic State militants, the U.S. is fighting back, saying it's prepared to degrade and destroy the group's capabilities in order to contain them.
Right. The statement follows U.S. President Barack Obama's pledge earlier in the day to seek justice for the organization's acts of inhumanity. Our Hwang Sung-hee has more.
So the bottom line is this. Our objective is clear, and that is to degrade and destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat, not just to Iraq, but also to the region and to the United States.
Following U.S. President Barack Obama's pledge to destroy Islamic State on Wednesday, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel outlined the dangers posed by the terror group. In an interview with CNN, Hagel called IS something we have never seen before and added his job as Secretary of Defense is not to second-guess what may be or what's going to be. Pointing out that Islamic State controls half of Iraq and Syria today, the U.S. Defense Chief said Washington will do everything possible to destroy the group's capacity to inflict harm on the American people and values. Earlier this week, President Obama said he would send 350 additional troops to Iraq to protect U.S. interests in Baghdad and in the north of the country, after another American journalist was killed by Islamic State. While a fresh battle against the extremists seems inevitable, Pentagon officials estimate the weapons, fuel, and other expenses are costing the U.S. around $225 million a month. And that could be a difficult challenge for President Obama, who now has to reverse one of the key tenets of his 2 presidential campaigns, that money once spent on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan would be redirected to nation building at home. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And Malaysia Airlines is drawing attention again, this time for launching an online contest earlier this week that offered prizes to winners who came up with the best suggestions for bucket list adventures that was quickly pulled the next day, I would say. Not too wise for them, given what's happened twice this year.
Well, the airline scrapped the event after it drew a barrage of criticism from the public for the title of the competition. It was called My Ultimate Bucket List Campaign. The term bucket list refers to things someone wants to do before they die or kick the bucket. The public claimed it was inappropriate choice of term to use in their campaign, especially following the 2 deadly disasters the airline suffered this year. Malaysia Airlines issued a statement on Wednesday saying it appreciates and respects the sentiments of the people and in no way did it intend to offend any parties.
Now on to some tech news, Chung-in. Researchers in Japan have developed a robot and they say it's one of the fastest in the world. How fast are we talking?
Well, the robot is able to run at about 4.3 kilometers per hour. You may not be impressed by this speed, but bear in mind, unlike most conventional robots that move on rollers, this is a bipedal robot that features a pair of legs 14 centimeters long. It's called ACARIS, or the Actively Coordinated High-Speed Image Processing Experiment System, created by robot engineers at the University of Tokyo. It can pivot its hips forward and swing the legs forward to kick the ground before it loses balance. ACARIS also features a high-speed camera and a stabilizing motor that allows it to lean forward without tipping over.
All right, Chung-in, thank you very much for those stories. Sun Jung-in there at the News Center with the global headlines.
Hope your day is coming along well, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates.
It was an autumn-like day here in Korea with nice and sunny skies nationwide, but parts of Gyeongsang-namdo province could still get 5 to 20 millimeters of precipitation due to instability in the atmosphere. And tomorrow is everyone's favorite day of the week, Friday, and the weather looks to be absolutely bright and clear, perfect for taking a nice stroll outdoors. But when doing so, make sure to grab a light cardigan with you because there looks to be a big gap in temperatures of about 10 degrees between the day and night. Moving on to Friday's readings, Seoul, Gwangju, and Busan reach 30 degrees while Daegu hits 32. On to other places, Jeju and Dokdo make it to 27, Mount Kumgang to 30. That's all for me for this hour, but I'll be back with more updates after 10. See you then.
Yes, see you then, Bo-kyung. Thank you very much. And that will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching.